In this video, I'm gonna make a comparison between the two best Polaroid cameras in the world, according to me. I've been using both of these for the last few weeks over the summer to try to make up my mind of which one I like the most, and it hasn't been easy. So this one is the Polaroid I2. It is the current flagship camera from Polaroid. It is pretty expensive, around $800–900, and it has autofocus, it has automatic exposure mode, it has manual exposure mode, it has aperture priority, shutter priority, and yeah, you can do lots of things with this camera, and it has a good built-in flash, which is powerful. You have exposure compensation here. You have a pretty decent viewfinder. However, this is not a DSLR, so you will not always see exactly the correct framing. It's more like a rangefinder style finder. But you do see the exposure and shutter speed and stuff in a small display in here, so that's pretty nice. It's charged via USB-C. And overall, it is a very nice camera, and I've been enjoying it a lot actually. This is the other camera that I've been using for the past few weeks, and this is a classic Polaroid SX-70. This particular model is the SX-70 Alpha. And what's cool about this is that it's a complete real SLR camera, which means that it has a mirror in here, and when you look in the viewfinder you will see exactly what you're gonna get. You will see exactly the right focus and everything. And this camera is refurbished. It's an old camera from the 70s that a guy on eBay that I bought it from has restored so that it feels and looks as new. And I think this person that I bought it from on eBay did a really good job, so I can highly recommend that seller. I am very happy with my camera, at least. It really feels brand new, even though it is probably from the 70s. And the thing with this camera, if we compare it to the I2, is that it is manual focus. So you look in the viewfinder and you focus with this wheel here, and it's pretty easy to get the focus right. And then you have exposure compensation here. If you want the exposure a bit lighter, you do like this, or if you want it darker, you turn it that way. And those are the only two controls you have on this camera. So it's fully automatic exposure. I do think that it does not always nail the exposure. Often it gets a bit dark. I usually try to set the exposure compensation so that it overexposes a little bit, because then the exposure gets pretty good on these new films that we have these days. Another example of a photo from this camera. And I should also mention that both of these cameras have really good lenses. That is why I consider these two of the best Polaroid cameras out there, because both of these lenses are super sharp. So that is not something you need to consider if you're trying to decide between these. I think my overall experience comparing these, by the way, this camera, I bought it for around 450 euros. So it was a lot cheaper than this camera. A difference between the SX-70 and the I2 is that the I2 has a really good flash, which means that you can use it indoors with good or great results. This camera does not have a flash. In the 70s, they sold these flash bars, which was like bulbs that was like one-time use. I think it's hard to get your hands on these nowadays. I do know that a company called Mint Camera that also refurbishes these SX-70 cameras, they have a flash that you can buy from them. I've heard, however, that flash is not very powerful, so it's probably not as good as this flash. So that leads to me only using this camera basically outdoors, because indoors it is usually too dark to get a good photo with this camera. Unless you're shooting something static and you put it on a tripod, then it might work. Another difference between these two cameras is that while this camera, the SX-70, is converted to use the modern 600 film, it does not use the I-type film. So this one uses what's called the 600 film, which is a film that has a small battery inside it. So it is not as environmentally friendly, and that film is also slightly more expensive. This camera uses the I-type film, which means that it does not have a battery inside the film. The camera has its own battery to drive everything. So that's a good thing with this camera. However, the company I mentioned, Mint, they sell a variant of this camera that is converted to use I-type film. So you could use the slightly cheaper film without a battery. However, Mint's camera is very expensive. It's like $800-900, I think, or somewhere around there. So yeah, you will have to consider that when you try to decide between these cameras. So what are my thoughts after using these two cameras for a few weeks, both of them? I actually still haven't really made up my mind which one I like the most. I think I would probably keep both of these. And the reason is that they are both good in different situations. I would say that the I2 is the best all-round camera. You can always get a good photo with this camera in any situation. You have the autofocus, you have the good flash so that you can use it indoors. You can always get a good photo with this camera. The downside with this camera is that it is a lot thicker than the SX-70. So it is bulkier, and you are not as keen to bring this with you everywhere for that reason. I mean, it's still fairly compact for being a Polaroid camera, but yeah, it's not anywhere near as compact as the SX-70. And that is one of the things I love about the SX-70, that it is so extremely compact, so you can have it in a very small bag, bring it everywhere, and it will not be an annoyance. Also, I think that this camera is, in general, more fun to use. I really like the manual focusing. I like the simplicity of this camera, that you only have like one button that you push to take the photo, and that's it. So if I'm just gonna shoot to have fun, I think that I would prefer this camera. The big downside is that you have less control, obviously, over the exposure. There are more misses with this camera, but at the same time, more photos that look kind of artistic. Another downside, of course, is that you don't have a good flash with this camera, so I can pretty much never use it indoors. So basically, if I want to be sure to get a good photo, I bring this camera. If I want to have fun, be more artistic, play around more, have something more compact, then I bring this camera. Another thing that I've noticed when using these two cameras this summer is that I very often have to make the decision, for example, if I'm going out for a walk with the family, should I document this with a Polaroid camera or with a digital camera? And that is usually, for me, a pretty hard decision, because yeah, it's fun to take Polaroids, but they are not that good in terms of image quality. And I would have to scan them to get them on my computer, to be able to share them with other people and so on. So I often feel like if I'm taking Polaroids, I'm missing the opportunity to document an important event with the best tool available. I mean, a modern digital camera takes so much better pictures that have so much higher resolution, better colors and everything. The dynamic range on instant film is pretty terrible. Here, by the way, is an example of a photo taken with an Instax camera. The nice thing with Instax cameras is that the film is a lot cheaper, a bit more vibrant. If you compare it though, the size of a Polaroid is a lot bigger. So overall, I think that Polaroids are a bit more fun actually, because they are so big, the pictures. They are more expensive though, the film is like twice the price. Overall, I think that no matter if you buy the SX-70, a modern refurbished variant of it, or if you buy the Polaroid I2, I think you're making a good choice. Both of these cameras are really good. I think these two cameras are probably the best two Polaroid cameras that you can buy, and neither of them is a bad camera. It's more like they have their strengths and weaknesses that I have talked about in this video, and I think after listening to me explaining that, maybe you're leaning more towards one of these cameras, and that is probably the one you should go for. By the way, this is my new office. This is the first video I make on this channel where you see this background. I'm really happy to finally have a dedicated office for doing my YouTube work. It feels so nice. Right now, in the last few weeks, I've been busy making videos on my new channel, Micael on Life. You can go check that channel out if you want to. I think that I will probably make a few videos here and there on this channel as well, but I think that probably this photography channel will be more like a hobby for me going forward. I will not make weekly videos, maybe once a month or so, we will see. Right now I prefer to focus on my new channel, Micael on Life. So, see you soon again, either on this channel or on my other channel or on both. Bye bye.